I saw the pill drop. It was small, white, almost invisible against the rim of the glass, but I saw it. My own daughter's hand hovering over my drink, her face calm, as though slipping a little death into her father's evening whiskey was nothing at all. I didn't say a word. Instead, I raised the glass, swirled it gently, and set it back down. Her eyes flicked up to check whether I had noticed. I smiled at her. That smile was the first step of my revenge. My name is Richard Cole. I'm 50 years old, a man who's spent his life working late shifts, missing family dinners, trying to put my daughter through college. Sit back and let me tell you how betrayal can cut deeper than a knife, and how I turned that cut into a scar my daughter would never forget. Before we get too far, don't forget to subscribe and let me know where you're listening from. The night it happened, I was already exhausted. A long day at the warehouse, endless paperwork, the usual grind. I sat down at the kitchen table, loosened my tie, and poured myself a drink. Emily, my only daughter, was bustling around the kitchen, acting a little too attentive. She was 23, engaged, with a wedding date marked in red on every calendar in the house. But something in her eyes was different that night. She laughed too loudly at nothing. She offered to fix my drink 3 times. She leaned in close when I finally let her pour one. That's when I saw the pill slip, a quiet betrayal, barely noticeable. I remember thinking, why? But the why didn't matter. What mattered was what I was going to do about it. That was the beginning. I didn't bring it up right away. When you love your child, suspicion feels like a betrayal in itself. I tried to rationalize it away. Maybe she was stressed. Maybe I misread her body language. Maybe she was only touching the glass, not tipping anything inside. But then it happened again. The second time, I was more prepared. I sat at the table with her and her fiancé, and I noticed how her hands trembled slightly. A soft clink as she pretended to fix her napkin, and her sleeve brushed the rim of my drink. I held the glass, smiled, and excused myself to the kitchen. In the privacy of the counter light, I tilted the glass, breathed in. There it was, a faint, bitter trace, like crushed chalk. No smell strong enough for an untrained nose, but I knew something was there. I didn't throw the glass away. I poured the liquid carefully into a mason jar and marked the lid with the date. Evidence. From then on, my house became a stage. I acted the fool, but behind every glance I was watching her. At night, I sat awake thinking about the why. Why would she want me drowsy, half sick, slipping through hours I couldn't account for? Why now, so close to her wedding? The questions clawed at me, but I didn't let them weaken me. I needed clarity, not confusion. I started small. I checked the cabinets. One bottle was missing from the medicine drawer, an old prescription of mine. Zolpidem, a heavy sleeping pill. Expired, but still effective. So it wasn't just paranoia. It was intent. She must have taken them when she thought I wouldn't notice. She must have ground them down, slipped them into her purse, waited for the right evenings. But for what purpose? I kept playing the role. Each dinner I drank. Each smile I forced. And each time I found the excuse to empty the glass in secret, filling another jar. By the end of the week I had 4. By the end of the month I had 7. Each one tucked away like silent witnesses. When you've been a father long enough, you know your child's tells. You know when their laughter rings hollow. You know when the words don't match the eyes. She was hiding something. And whatever it was, it required me unconscious. I thought about confronting her. God knows I wanted to slam my hand on the table and demand the truth. But patience is sharper than rage. Rage reveals too early. Patience lets you pick the moment. So I waited. The wedding was 3 weeks away. The whole family buzzed with preparations. Her mother-in-law was helping with flowers. Her fiancé was neck-deep in guest lists. And my daughter kept hovering near me, pressing a glass into my hand whenever she could. "Drink, Dad," she'd say. "You look tired. You need it." Yes, she needed me tired. The more I thought about it, the clearer the picture became. Maybe she wanted me asleep so I couldn't interrupt something. Maybe she was afraid I'd embarrass her. Maybe she wanted me out of the way. Or maybe, deep down, she wanted me not there at all. That thought cut deeper than anything. Still, I didn't move, not yet, because a weak confrontation would only end in excuses, apologies, and denial. I wanted her caught in her own trap. I wanted her to live through the taste of her own medicine. So I waited. I let the jars fill. I let her believe she was clever. I let her think she was winning. And then came the night before the wedding. She brought me tea this time. Different glass, different scent. She set it in front of me with a smile that didn't quite reach her cheeks. "Sleep well tonight, Dad. Big day tomorrow." I held the cup, nodded. "You're right, big day." When she turned her back, I swapped it. Her cup for mine, mine for hers. She never noticed. I sat there, sipping plain tea, while she finished her dose. Within 20 minutes, her words slurred. Within 30, she stumbled down the hall. Within an hour, she was out cold on her bed, still in her clothes, her phone buzzing with unanswered texts from her fiancé. And when dawn came, the house was silent. Guests were arriving at the church. Her groom was pacing. The flowers were set, the music ready. And my daughter? She was still sleeping, mouth dry, face pale, dead to the world. She didn't rise at 8. She didn't rise at 9. By 10, panic had set in. By 11, her fiancé was calling every hospital in town, thinking the worst had happened. At noon, the ceremony collapsed under its own weight. Guests left murmuring. The cake sat untouched. The music faded without a bride to walk the aisle. And she slept. She missed the entire thing. By the time she finally stirred awake, the day was already gone. The dress still hung on the back of the closet door, untouched. The bouquet lay wilted on the kitchen counter, forgotten. She sat up groggy, confused, phone buzzing with 30 missed calls, messages stacked one after another. The first thing she did was stumble into the living room, her face wild with panic. "Dad, what time is it?" I looked at her, calm as stone. "It's over." She blinked, not understanding. Then her eyes went to the clock. 4:15 p.m. Too late for excuses. Too late for anything. She screamed. Threw the phone. Clutched her head. "No, no, no, no." She collapsed into the couch, sobbing like a child. Her fiancé wasn't answering anymore. The guests had long since left. The church had closed its doors. And the story was already spreading. Because weddings are public things. Small towns talk. And when a bride doesn't show up, people don't wait for explanations, they build their own. I didn't say much. I didn't need to. The silence between us was punishment enough. By evening, her fiancé parents showed up at the door. His mother's face was pale, drawn tight. His father's jaw was clenched so hard I thought his teeth would crack. "She didn't even call?" his father demanded. My daughter tried to stammer out excuses. I overslept. Overslept? His mother's voice cut like glass. "You humiliated our son in front of 200 people. You made him stand alone at the altar." She broke down, crying again, reaching out. They recoiled. That night, he returned her ring, slid it across the table without a word, his hands trembling. She reached for him, begged him, but he wouldn't meet her eyes. It was over. The days that followed were a storm. Friends who once adored her now kept their distance. Relatives whispered at every corner. She lost not just her fiancé, but her place in the community. And me? I said nothing. I let her unravel. Because I wanted her to taste what she had tried to serve me. Silence, isolation, helplessness. She never asked me directly, but I could feel her suspicion growing. She looked at me differently. Sometimes her gaze lingered on my cup, my plate, as if wondering if the roles had somehow reversed. But she never spoke it aloud. Shame kept her quiet. Weeks turned to months, and she tried to recover, tried to call her ex, tried to rebuild. But reputations, once shattered, don't glue back together so easily. And every time she failed, every time she cried herself to sleep in that room down the hall, I thought about those jars. Those 7 jars sitting quietly in my drawer, each one marked, each one proof of her intent. I hadn't shown them yet. I hadn't needed to. But part of me knew The day would come when they would matter. When truth, undeniable and sharp, would be the final blade. Because patience doesn't just cut, it waits for the deepest wound to open before it strikes. The fallout from that night didn't settle into silence, the way scandals sometimes do when people grow bored. Instead, it spread like water into every crack of Emily's carefully built life. The first calls came from her bridesmaids, or rather, the women she had called bridesmaids. They weren't calling to comfort her or to ask about her side of the story. They were calling to demand explanations, to ask why they had been humiliated by association, to accuse her of dragging them into something ugly without warning. I overheard one of those calls by accident. I was in the kitchen, standing by the sink, while Emily shouted upstairs. Her voice carried through the old walls, brittle with tension. "You don't understand," she cried. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. He made it worse. He was supposed to stay quiet." I didn't know who she meant by he. Maybe she meant me. Maybe she meant her ex-fiancé. Maybe both. By the end of that week, 2 of those bridesmaids dropped out entirely. The group chat that had been alive with dress fittings, playlists, and color schemes went cold. Emily sat in her room for hours, scrolling through the empty chat as if her willpower could bring it back to life. Her ex-fiancé, Thess family, on the other hand, wasted no time in making their stance clear. His mother arrived at my door one evening, her coat still dusted with the grit of early spring. She didn't knock so much as she hammered. When I opened the door, she looked at me as though I was the architect of everything. "You raised her," she said flatly. "You should be ashamed." I didn't answer. I let her words settle in the air, like snow refusing to melt. Then I closed the door gently, slowly, with no defense offered. Emily stormed down the stairs moments later, her face blotchy and wet, and screamed at me for not defending her. "You let her say that to me. You let her say that about me." I didn't answer her either. I only looked at her. It wasn't silence meant to protect her, nor silence meant to comfort. It was the silence of a man measuring every consequence before deciding what comes next. And consequences, I noticed, had begun to multiply. Her ex-fiancé didn't merely step back. He vanished entirely. His social media went private. His number changed. The engagement photos that once adorned the local studio window disappeared overnight. Emily tried, desperately, to find traces of him. She even drove past his family's house one evening, only to find the curtains drawn and the lights off, though I could see the glow of a television behind them. They were home. They just wouldn't answer the door. It would have been enough, for some people, enough pain, enough isolation, enough collapse. But Emily wasn't the kind of person who surrendered gracefully. She turned her anger inward at first, slamming doors, shredding old letters, tearing her own photos from the walls, but it wasn't long before she turned it outward. And outward meant toward me. "You think you're so calm," she spat one night. "You think your silence makes you smarter, but it makes you pathetic. You're the reason this happened. You're the reason everyone's against me." I didn't argue. I didn't rise to her bait. I had learned, over decades, that when someone has built a life out of lies, truth doesn't destroy them. Their own panic does. Still, I watched her. I listened when she muttered to herself. I paid attention to the way she avoided calls, or checked the street before walking to her car, as though afraid of being seen. And one night, I heard her crying into the phone. "I can fix it," she whispered. "I just need one more chance. They don't have to know. Nobody has to know." The line went quiet. Whoever she spoke to didn't agree. She began drinking more. Not openly, not with bottles left on the counter, but quietly. The flask slipped into her bag, glasses refilled too quickly. I smelled it on her breath when she leaned too close in anger. Her work began to suffer next. A professor had once praised her for her precision, her sharpness, her ability to present arguments like steel. Now her assignments came back with red circles and clipped remarks. Unclear, incomplete, see me after class. She stopped showing me those papers. She stopped showing me anything. But I saw enough. I saw her try to rally the last of her friends with promises that she would set the record straight. I saw her begging one of them outside the coffee shop downtown, clutching at the girl's wrist as the girl pulled away, embarrassed by the eyes watching through the glass. I saw the way neighbors avoided her in the grocery store, their carts angling away, their conversations cut short. And I saw her late one night, sitting on the porch with her head in her hands, whispering words I couldn't quite hear. Her shoulders shook. For the first time in years, she looked like a child again. I almost felt something then. Almost. But almost wasn't enough to erase what she had tried to do to me. The sleeping pills, the betrayal, the willingness to risk my life for her convenience. No, almost wasn't enough. Instead, I thought about patience. Patience, like a blade sharpened not for speed but for certainty. Emily thought her humiliation had peaked, that the world had already turned its back on her. She thought, perhaps, that with time people would forget, that reputations could be rebuilt the way houses are painted, that memories faded like ink in sunlight. But I knew better. Memories didn't fade, they hardened. They etched themselves into the walls of the people who bore them. I had time. I had silence. I had the discipline to wait for the right fracture line in the stone of her life, the place where a single strike would shatter everything. And so I waited. Emily tried to take control again, in her own way. She signed up for new classes. She spoke loudly in public as though volume could restore dignity. She posted carefully curated photos online with captions about fresh starts and moving forward. But the comments were absent, the likes were few, and the silence of the world was heavier than any insult. One evening she came home late. Her eyes darted toward me in the living room, but she said nothing. I noticed the smudge of mascara around her lashes, the faint line of red around her nose. She dropped her bag and went straight upstairs. Later that night, when she finally slept, I stepped quietly into her room. Her phone lay face up on the nightstand, screen cracked at one corner. A message glowed on the screen before it dimmed. "We can't help you anymore. Don't call us again." I stood there for a long time, staring at those words. And in that moment I realized something simple, something undeniable. Her collapse wasn't complete yet, but it was close. Closer than she could imagine. And I was the only one who knew how close. It didn't take long for me to understand that what had happened at the church wasn't the end of anything. It was the beginning of what happens when a person's lies run out of room. She woke up each morning with a different plan for repairing her life. Each plan required someone else's patience, money, or name. None of those things were available anymore. Neighbors who used to wave from their porches started pretending they didn't see us. At the grocery store, Mrs. Benson, who once slipped Emily extra coupons at the register when I worked late, now busied herself with a price check whenever my daughter stepped into her line. I watched all of it without commentary, the way you watch a storm through a window after you've sandbagged the doors. You stay dry, you do not gloat. She tried to call her ex again, from the porch, from the car, from the living room, with the curtains half closed, whispering as though half privacy counts as secrecy. No answer. Once, I saw a text appear in the banner of her phone while she was in the kitchen. His sister's name, a short, hard sentence. Stop writing to him. Emily stared at it until the screen went black. History crept in on nights like that. I remembered the small girl who used to fall asleep on my shoulder in the back of the movie theater while I finished mopping floors. I remembered the teenager who rolled her eyes when I put a seatbelt across her prom dress. I remembered the time I said no to a trip we couldn't afford and her silence lasted 3 weeks. There were always two Emilas, the one who could be kind like summer rain and the one who could calculate like a stranger. Somewhere along the line, the second one learned to make a home in her. I did not tell those memories to anyone. I kept them like old photographs in a drawer that didn't see daylight. One evening she came down the stairs in a jacket meant to look expensive, and a smile meant to erase 3 months of gossip. "I'm meeting with a friend," she said, breezy in a way that had broken many people's resistance in her life. I nodded. "Be safe." She stopped. Frowned. "You're not going to ask who?" "No," I said. That answer bothered her more than if I had demanded information. She wanted me to try to control her so she could resist me and prove her independence. I gave her permission to be exactly what she was. There is a particular kind of fury reserved for people who run into a wall when they were hoping for a fight. After she left, I sat at the table and turned over the jars in the drawer one by one, 7 of them, screw-top lids with neat dates in my handwriting. I had taped their lids shut months ago and signed across the tape. It was a habit I learned when I worked nights in a warehouse that taught me a simple truth. If you want people to take your words seriously, make it easy for them to trust your hands. I called the clinic on Maple and asked to speak to a nurse who used to live 2 doors down when Emily was young. Her name is Ruth, and she once kept ginger candies in her pocket for the kids who cried during shots. "Ruth," I said, when she picked up, "I have something I need tested. Not for a police report. For me." Her voice softened the way tired people soften when they recognize someone who has never wasted their time. "I can't do hospital chains," she said, "but we can send it out to a lab. If you keep it sealed and come in with a notary, they'll create a chain of custody for your copy. You want tox screen?" "Yes," I said, "Zolpidem, and anything else in the family." She exhaled. "I remember your girl's wedding day," she said, not unkind. "Bring me one sample to start. We'll do it right." I took the jar with the earliest date and drove to the clinic at 11 in the morning, the hour when the waiting room is quietest. A notary met me at the counter. I signed, Ruth signed, the lab slip went into an envelope, and the envelope into a bag with a barcode that would track each set of hands. The nurse placed a copy of the barcode sticker on my receipt. 2 weeks, she said, maybe 10 days if the lab is quick. "I can wait," I said, and smiled, because patience is the one muscle I'd kept strong my whole life. The next afternoon, an envelope from my bank arrived, addressed to me but handled like a warning. Extra stamp, the word "important" in red, and a second, smaller envelope inside. I knew before I opened it that it would be about a credit attempt. When I slid the letter free, it was exactly what I expected and still infuriated me in a small, precise way. An attempt to open a home equity line in my name had been flagged by their system. The call had come from my house number. The voice had answered the security questions correctly until she did not. "Caller failed secondary verification," the letter read. "Application denied and flagged." I called the bank and asked, nicely, for a verification letter on company letterhead noting the date, the time, and the number. The man on the phone cleared his throat. "We can add," he said, "that the caller identified herself as your assistant and said you were napping." "That detail matters," I said. "Please put it in." "It will be in," he said. "And, sir," he paused, "we recommend you place a freeze on your credit with the 3 bureaus." "It's already done," I said. After dinner, Emily came in late and straightened the stack of mail without reading any of it, something she does when she's trying to act normal. When she reached the bank envelope, I watched her fingers hesitate a fraction of a second. She kept walking. She heated soup she didn't eat and left the bowl half full in the sink. She didn't clean it. That was the detail that told me her mind was moving faster than her manners. I learned something else that week. Her phone still backed up to the old family laptop in the hall closet. I wasn't mining secrets like a spy. I was maintaining an account I paid for with money I earned after midnight while my child slept. When I opened photos, there were her pictures, cathedrals of her own face, filtered breakfasts, then screenshots, and then, too often, images of small plastic pill blisters with 3 missing and an emoji that made a joke out of the missing. The messages thread synced too. I scrolled through months of the unimportant noise of modern life and then stopped when I saw a name I recognized only vaguely, Rena. An old friend from college who once stayed over on the couch and left a bottle of nail polish on the sill. The thread wasn't dramatic. It was brisk, efficient. Women who live without apologies talk that way when they think they deserve what they're taking. I read, "Rena, if he's asleep by 9, you can get the code without a scene. Emily, he's a light sleeper. It's easier when he's clumsy after a drink." He reads slower. "Rena, make it a routine. Then you can say he's been forgetful for months. Emily, he signs anything when he's drowsy. He thinks he doesn't. He does. Rena, you only need one page to fix everything. Power of... The rest of the message cut off with the lock screen dimming, then resumed again 3 hours later. Emily, he's suspicious now. I need a different route. I can't keep dosing him. Rena, then give the dose to yourself once. Sleep through a day. No one can say you switched his drink if you were sick, too. I read that twice. Then I leaned back in the chair and stared at the wall until the grain of the wood looked like maps. The logic of a drowning person. It wasn't about guilt or innocence. It was about narrative. She didn't need me asleep to hurt me physically. She needed me asleep so she could point at me in front of a notary and call me unfit. Her plan had a shape. Create a pattern of absent hours. Then present paperwork for my signature in case of emergency. Then use that signature to pull equity, change titles, or make care decisions about the man she claimed was slipping. The jars in the drawer weren't just proof that she tried to slow my mind. They were proof that she tried to rewrite my life. I printed the messages with date stamps. I did not confront her. I filed them with the bank letter and a copy of my credit freeze confirmations. I slid all of it into the same binder, where I kept property taxes, deeds, and the picture of the house the day we moved in. The next day, I got a call from someone I hadn't expected to hear from again. The groom, not the ex. A person with a name and a voice that had once filled my kitchen with talk of cheap furniture and cheap flights, and how every bad moment can be fixed if you keep moving. "Mr. Cole," he said. His voice was smaller than I remembered. "Could we meet?" We met at the diner on 3rd, because that is where people go in our town when they need to say something they're ashamed of. He sat in the corner booth and kept folding his napkin into smaller rectangles until it looked like a trick. "I'm not here to fight," he said before I could speak. "I'm not here to try again. I'm here because I want you to know something, and then I'm leaving." I nodded. I did not fill the space with words. Men like me learn to let the other person drain their own poison. "She asked me to help her," he said, "before the wedding, a few weeks before. She said you needed a document signed so she could help you with bills, just in case you got sick. She said it was practical. She said you'd be offended if we asked. She said I should distract you while she brought the paper to you." He swallowed. Shame is heavy in young men. It sits behind their eyes and tries to be bravery. "I didn't help," he said. "I told her to ask you straight. I told her you were the kind of man who needed to say yes to his own future. We fought. We didn't speak for a day. Then she was sweet again. She said she'd handled it." I let him keep talking. "The night before the wedding, he said she showed me a bottle of pills and told me she was taking one for anxiety, that it would help her sleep. She offered me one as a joke. I said no. She said she always slept better when you slept too. And she left." He stared at the napkin like it would hand him a memory he'd left there. "I didn't know what to do with that," he said. "I'm not built for mysteries. I'm built for straight lines. When she didn't show up, I thought..." He stopped. The word didn't come. He didn't need it to come. "Thank you," I said. "I'm sorry," I added, because I meant it. He nodded once. He slid a small flash drive across the table. "I kept something," he said. "Messages, screenshots. She asked me to delete them. I didn't. I can't keep them. I also can't throw them out. So I'm giving them to you. This is the last thing I'll do in this story." He stood. He left a few dollars for the coffee he didn't drink. He put his coat on and walked out into the kind of wind that punishes you for forgetting a scarf. I didn't follow. At home, I plugged the drive into the old laptop. The folder structure was simple. /chat/Emily. The messages were familiar. Lines about making people sleep on time. Jokes about Dad loves his nightcap. An image of my prescription bottle with the label blurred. And 2 voice memos. I listened to the first. It was Emily's voice, low and fast. "If he signs the one paper, it's done. If he won't, he can't keep up anyway. He naps at 7 like a child. He doesn't even know." The second voice memo was shorter, her whisper, then Rinna's voice. "He'll fight you," Rinna said. "He won't if he's asleep," Emily answered. I closed the laptop. I stepped out onto the porch into air that smelled like snow, even though the calendar insisted it was only fall. The kind of air that clears the wrong out of your lungs, and what's left is resolve. It would have been easy to take those recordings and run them through the town like a bell. It would have been easy to send them to every cousin, every bridesmaid, every person who felt smug about guessing wrong. It would have been easy to crush the remains of a reputation under the heel of my proof. But easy isn't what lasts. Lasting is paper and patience and the correct door with the correct key. Ruth called. "Your lab result is back," she said. "We're emailing the formal report, but I wanted you to hear it from me. Significant concentration of zolpidem in your sample. It's not ambiguous. The dates match what you wrote on the lid. You'll see the numbers. It's not minor." "Thank you," I said. "Can you notarize the copy you give me?" "It's already done," she said. "I know how some stories go." When I hung up, Emily was coming down the steps, hair wrapped into a messy bun she never wore before noon. She had that look she gets when she's decided to win. Shoulders back, chin up, the exact posture that made teachers call on her even when she hadn't read the chapter. "I'm meeting with someone," she said. "I figured," I said. "It's about work," she added too quickly. "Of course," I said. She waited for me to demand specifics. I didn't. She left, annoyed that her performance had no audience. I followed in my car at a distance I've learned from years of watching trains leave on time. She drove to the coffee shop on Pine, the one with the white cups and black lids that make sad people think they are philosophers. She met Rena at a table in the back. I watched through the glass while pretending to read a sign that advertised compostable straws. Their conversation looked swift. Two birds pecking at a crust. Emily gestured with her hands, small shapes meant to signal she was in charge. Rena leaned back and said one thing that made Emily's mouth tighten and her eyes go narrow. It was a look she learned from me, and the knowledge of that stung more than it should have. When Emily left, I walked in and stood in line like a customer. I watched Rena gather her bag and pause to toss her cup, aligning the logo toward the trash like an apology to the barista. As she crossed in front of me, I said her name once, quiet. She looked up, reflexively polite. When she realized who I was, she blanched but didn't bolt. I respect people who can stand still in the presence of their own choices. "I'm not here to fight," I said, the same line the boy had used at the diner. "I'm here to offer you one kindness. I won't use your name. I won't include your face. But if you contact my daughter again about me, about my house, my signature, my bank, I will file every piece of paper I have, and your name will be typed on every sheet." She swallowed. "She's not well," she said softly, the first truthful thing I had heard from her mouth. "I agree," I said, "and I'm not the medicine she needs." Rena nodded. She left. She never came to the house again. Her absence was the first mercy Emily didn't know she'd been given. There is a point at which a story stops being a private ache and becomes a civic lesson. The town had already made up its mind about the girl who slept through her own wedding. But it didn't know the other truth. The months of dosing, the credit attempts, the plans to make a capable man seem like a liability. If I wanted safety, I had to draw a clear line in a public place. I called the family lawyer, who drew up my will when Emily was 18 and thought money was a wish that grew legs. He is a spare man, the kind who files papers hard and straight so the drawer shuts with a click. I brought him the binder, the bank letter, the lab report, the printed messages, the flash drive. He read each piece slowly, then again, then made 3 separate stacks. He said very little. At the end, he made 3 calls in front of me, a phone company, a notary, and a judge's clerk. His words were plain. "We are filing a protective order that prevents any person from attempting to represent your interests without your physical presence," he said. "We are filing letters with your banks. We are placing a durable notice with your deed that any transfer requires 2 witnesses. Overkill? Perhaps, but overkill beats a whisper. We're also preparing a letter to her, to be delivered by hand, stating that any attempt to access your accounts, your identity, your home, without you, will be treated as fraud. I think clarity is a gift. I agree, I said. He slid a paper across the desk. Sign here and here. He handed me a pen that felt more like a tool than a toy. When I left, my phone buzzed. It was a number I didn't recognize. You're making a mistake, a woman's voice said when I answered. Who is this? Someone who cares about your daughter, she said. There are many of you, I said, fewer now. You can't shut her out. She'll do something desperate, the voice insisted. I'm giving her the dignity of living with the size of her choices, I said. Desperation is what happens when we do not respect the shape of consequences. The line went dead. I did not call back. Concern without responsibility is just noise in a nicer dress. I began to clean the house the way you clean a place when you're tired of ghosts. Drawers emptied and filled with only the things that belonged. The safe reprogrammed with a code I did not write down. I removed the spare key from the garden stone and gave it to no one. I placed a small camera in the kitchen, not because I wanted to catch her again, but because I wanted the quiet knowledge that I could. Meanwhile, Emily tried to reinvent herself with speed. She dyed her hair a color that didn't suit her, then dyed it back. She applied for jobs in other towns, lied about why she needed a quick start date, smiled in interviews with that particular shine desperate people lend their faces. She got 2 offers and lost one before she started because a bridesmaid's cousin worked at the same company and whispered. She did not learn that when you hurt people, their stories about you travel faster than official memos. She took the job she could get, part-time office assistant for a dentist who needed someone to file insurance claims and smile at strangers. She brought home peppermint smell and the sound of a suction tube in her sleep. I didn't mock it. Work is work. I've done worse for less. A week into the job, I found a small receipt folded in the trash. Pharmacy counter. Cash purchase. A name that wasn't hers. Not a felony on paper. Not even a misstep in a moral code most people use. But to me it was a flare. She had found another route to the same medicine. I unfolded the receipt and took a photo. I scribbled the details under the image. Date, time, store, clerk number. Then I put the original back in the trash and took the photo upstairs and emailed it to myself. That night I sat at the table and pressed play on the camera's feed. The kitchen looked harmless in gray scale. A woman came in, paused with her fingers on the rim of a glass that wasn't hers. She counted to 5, like she always had as a child before crossing the street, and then pulled her hand back. She stood there without moving for a long minute, then put the glass in the sink and walked away. It was the closest thing to restraint I had seen in her for months. It meant nothing by itself. It meant everything as a sign she hadn't thrown the last of her good away. Not long after, there was a knock at the door I recognized, because grief knocks in a pattern you never forget. The groom's mother stood on my porch again. She looked older by a year and 3 months. I want to give you this, she said, holding a small envelope. It's a copy of the bill from the church. We paid it. We should have made your daughter pay it. We did not. I'm not here for money. I'm here to say that we aren't telling anyone the part of the story that isn't theirs to own. We say only that our son was left standing. We do not say what we suspect. I took the envelope and nodded. Thank you, I said. She looked past me into the house and saw no chaos. That seemed to soothe something ugly in her, the way order always does. Do you hate her? She asked, not nosy, just curious in the way of people who have been pulled into a storm and crawled back onto their own land. No, I said. I don't carry hate. It's too heavy. I carry records. They weigh less and hold longer. She laughed once, a sound with no edges. Then she left. Winter came like a consequence. Slow, inevitable, uninterested in excuses. Snow closed the street twice. On the second closure, I watched Emily stand at the window with a cup of tea and talk to the glass. I can fix this, she whispered. The window did not answer. It never answers. January is when people make promises they won't keep. I kept mine. Every Monday I checked with the lawyer. Every Wednesday I checked the camera's memory card. Every Friday I paid bills and wrote in the ledger the way my father taught me. The truth of a house is arithmetic. In February, the lab sent the notarized final copy of the report. I slid it into the binder with the rest. I added a small note to myself on a sticky. Final proof. Do not use unless necessary. The word unless is important. Power talk feels good to weak people. Control talk is what strong people do in their own heads, quietly. A new name appeared on Emily's phone that month. A man called Damon, old enough to know better, young enough to try anyway. Their messages started simple and turned sharp by week 3. Damon, we should get out of here. Emily, where? Damon, anywhere that isn't a small town that loves to memorize other people's sins. Emily, we need money. Damon, you said your dad has a house. You said he's tired. Emily, he is. He's also different now. Damon, different how? Emily, he writes things down. I printed that one and added it to the binder not because it was incriminating, but because it was true and I wanted to remember that she noticed. The dentist let her go in March. Mismatch, he said in a short email with no malice. She had been late twice and had filed a claim for a patient who hadn't come in. Not fraud, just the kind of sloppiness that comes when you lose the thread of yourself. She didn't tell me she lost the job. I found the separation notice in the laundry, sealed and creased the way you crease something you hope never to see again. She took long walks after that, a hat pulled low, the old park by the river getting 2 new paths every day, one the shoes made, one the mind made. I knew that if I left her in that loop, it would end with her inventing a version of the past in which she had never tried to drug me, and I had always overreacted, and the wedding had been a misunderstanding the size of a city. That's how minds save themselves when they have nowhere to go. So I planned a different end for the story, not a courtroom, not a crowd. I planned a room where truth could sit on the table and look at everyone and not blink. I called 5 people, not a mob, 5. Her Aunt Lila, who tells the truth louder than the radio. The groom, who agreed to come if he could sit by the door. His mother, because she deserved to hear a full sentence. Ruth the nurse, because she understands how bodies fail and how people make them fail on purpose. And Mr. Flores from the bank, who speaks in numbers like other men speak in sports. I told them I would be making chili, and that I would not be shouting. I told them there would be paper. I told them there would be coffee. I did not tell Emily until the day of. I came into the kitchen at noon with 2 bags of onions and a roll of butcher paper. She was at the table, scrolling with the boredom that looks like concentration. We're having people tonight, I said. 6 o'clock. Who? Family, I said, and 2 people who helped me keep my name. She narrowed her eyes. I'm not doing another intervention, she said. I'm not 12. This isn't one, I said. This is dinner and paper. She laughed, a sharp sound, then went very still. What paper? The kind with dates, I said. The kind with names. She stood up so fast that chair legs squealed on the floor. You think you can embarrass me in my own house? It's my house, I said. You live here because I let you. That will not change at 6 o'clock, regardless of how this night ends. Her mouth opened and closed twice. She left the room and came back and left again. She went upstairs. She stayed there for hours. I cut onions until the kitchen smelled like memory and acid. I browned meat and let it rest. I set the table with the plates she hates because they are heavy. Heavy is the point. At 5:30, the first knock sounded. Lila, with her winter coat unbuttoned and her hair strategic. She hugged me like a person who means it, and then took the ladle out of my hand and tasted the pot without asking. She nodded. She didn't say, "Needs salt." It did. I salted it anyway, because I like to be right by myself. Ruth arrived next, coat draped over her arm like a nurse's confidence. She touched my shoulder and didn't look in my eyes. Nurses know where not to look. She placed a folder on the table like offering, and then covered it with her hand, as if to bless it. The groom stood at the threshold with his hands jammed in his pockets and his jaw set. His mother stood behind him. They did not look around the room the way guests do. They looked at the floor, then the table, then the chairs. choosing where to place their forgiveness before they considered where they would sit. Flores from the bank came last, hat in hand, like men used to come to churches. He shook my hand twice, the second time longer than the first, as if the first had been a test. Emily came downstairs at 5:45, with her hair straightened the way she used to style it when she wanted to be the person strangers trusted. She looked beautiful in the way a clean knife looks beautiful. Something in me ached. Something in me hardened. She saw the faces, stopped, smiled at the wrong person first, Flores, corrected, and then sat at the chair farthest from me. It is a particular dance to watch your child choose distance. I let her sit wherever she wanted. Distance works both ways. I placed bowls. I ladled chili. People ate because people must. Lila said something funny because silence needed breaking. Ruth asked the groom's mother about her job because dignity needs occupation. Flores folded his napkin into a triangle the way he does when he's about to use numbers to draw a map. When the bowls were empty and the heavy plates had earned their keep, I stood, took the binder from the countertop, and laid it on the table. I did not push it toward anyone. I set it where the bread would go at a normal dinner. No shouting, I said. No performances. No surprises. Emily laughed, brittle. You invited my public to a private trial? No, I said. I invited witnesses to a reading. I'm going to read a record. Then we can talk about what we want to do with it. I opened to the first page I had printed, the bank letter, noting the attempt to open a line of credit in my name while I was allegedly napping. I read the date, the time, the words secondary verification. I set the letter down. I opened to the lab report. I read the formal name of the pill, the concentration, the line that said consistent with ingestion. I set it down. I opened to the messages. I did not read the ugliest ones. I read only the parts that told the story. He signs anything when he's drowsy. He won't if he's asleep. Make it a routine. I set them down. I pressed play on one of the voice memos, volume low, her whisper, and then Rinna's answer. Nobody breathed until it ended. Then everybody breathed too loudly. Emily stared at the table. Then she stared at me. Then at the ceiling, like she might find a sentence up there to rescue her. When she looked back down, her face had that smoothness it gets when she decides to fight, even though the ground is gone. This isn't what it looks like, she said. It's exactly what it looks like, I answered, calm as a level. But you may explain it. You may explain it as long as you wish. You may also sit and say nothing. Both are choices. She looked at Lila as if an ant could hand her a rope. Lila shook her head once, sharply, then put her hands in her lap like she had handcuffed her own instinct to rescue. Emily tried the groom next, but he stared at the corner of the table where a knot in the wood looked like an eye. She finally looked at her hands. I panicked, she said. I was trying to make sure you'd be taken care of if something happened. I was trying to move things along because you never sign anything. You never say yes. Everything takes 1,000 years with you. You drugged me, I said. She flinched at the hard word. I helped you rest. You drugged me, I said again. The sentence sat between us like a brick. You drank on your own, she snapped, too quick, the temper flashing through the practiced tone. You drink. Everyone knows you drink. Which is why the jars are dated and sealed, I said, and why the lab confirms ingestion of something I did not pour. Silence. It filled the room without asking permission. The groom's mother closed her eyes. Ruth placed her hand flat on the lab report as if to stop it from moving. Flores pinched the bridge of his nose. Lila's jaw worked. Emily looked at the door the way people look at exits from burning buildings. I almost ended it there. I almost lifted the binder, said my last sentence, and let the evening collapse into the kind of tears that lead to an apology you can't believe. But I have learned that a house stays up because you put the beam in the right place, not because you feel like you've nailed enough boards. So I kept going, quietly, lining up each piece of paper until the last possible doubt had no room to stand. I placed the flash drive on the table. I slid across a single-page letter from my lawyer addressed to Emily, still unopened, sealed with a blue sticker like an eye. I set down the printed credit freezes. I set down the notarized copy of the lab report. Then I took a deep breath and told the room the last thing I had not told anyone. The night before the wedding, the tea you drank was mine. Her head snapped up. You did this to me. No, I said. You did this to you. I gave you the benefit of your own plan. You slept through what you wanted me to miss. It changed nothing in your favor. Her mouth opened. A sound came out that was not quite a word. The groom stood and took 2 steps away from the table, because people sometimes need to move their bodies to stop their hearts from running. I'm not here to put you in jail, I said. If I wanted that, I would have done it months ago. I am here to do what you were trying to do with lies, set terms. We will set them with the truth instead, and we will set them tonight. I did not speak the terms then. I let the idea of terms sit in the room like cool air from a just-opened door. Her eyes moved from me to the binder, to the faces of the people who had watched her shape the world to fit her, and now saw the edges. I poured coffee for everyone, because coffee lets the hands do something while the mind accepts what it fought. I refilled bowls, because the body will take warmth even when pride refuses it. I opened the window 1 inch because kitchens get hot when history is present. Outside, the wind was changing. Inside, the facts were arranged. The table was set. The right people were in the room. The next part, the part where a life turns, was on the other side of a sentence I had not yet said. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. When Emma finally came home after her failed wedding, hair undone, makeup streaked, her dress in a crumpled bag, she found me sitting at the table, the same table where she used to sit as a little girl, asking me if I thought her drawings were good. She collapsed into a chair, eyes hollow. You ruined everything. I slid a folder across the table. Inside were printouts, her texts with the caterer, her attempt to cancel the hotel block, her search history about how long do sleeping pills last. Every word was time-stamped, every action preserved. No, Emma, I said, you ruined everything. I just made sure the truth didn't go unnoticed. She reached for the folder with trembling hands, but before she could close it, I dropped another stack on top, a court summons. Her fiancé's family had filed a civil case against her for fraud, emotional damages, and the cost of a wedding that never happened. Her voice cracked. Dad, you can't let them. I didn't let them. I cut her off. I helped them. I gave them everything they needed. Her mouth fell open. Shock turned to rage, then collapsed into despair. You wanted me out of the way so badly, I said, standing slowly. Well, I stepped aside, and you tripped over your own greed. She sobbed, but I walked to the door. Before leaving, I turned once more. You thought I'd sleep through it all, Emma, but I was awake the whole time. And with that, I closed the door behind me, letting her cry alone in the silence she had created. The daughter who tried to poison her father ended up poisoning her own future. That was the last night she ever looked at me the same way. And for me, it was the first night I slept peacefully in years. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe and join Taste of Revenge family, and share your impressions of the story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on one of the boxes on the right. Thank you for watching to the end.